Oh, you got the music to work. That's awesome.
I do, finally.
Hello, everybody. This is another edition of Coffee Pan Dulce. This is our second Wednesday of the month, March 9th. Had to look at my clock on my iPad here from one of the studio right here. But I don't know. I got Twitter painted there. I did a Christian. Like normally,
that's right. You did.
All confused. I don't know. I think I ate too many of those vegan meatballs or something.
You did. Right? Yeah, that plant
made me gay or something.
That's right.
It's okay. But anyway, hey, good morning, Christian. How are you?
Good morning, Jenny. How are you today? What a beautiful, beautiful week here in North Carolina. It's raining, so it is. Will be raining this week. So, wherever you're at, we just really got off to a great start, didn't we? Here.
Yeah. Well. We started a little late on the recording, and we do record late on Monday nights.
That's
so
right.
We have Tuesday to clean up the show and make sure we have our promo set and everything else. But we do have two guests as well on the show, which is unusual. Normally it's just Christian and I spilling the tea. So we have two fabulous guests from the great state of Florida.
And hopefully Barbara will be joining us here very soon, but let's go ahead and start the show. Welcome, everyone. This is Coffee Pan Dulce. I'm Christian Cano, one of your co-hosts, along with Jenny Gunn, Barb Bacon, and Mama Ruth. We are Mama Ruthless today, and Barb Bacon hopefully will be joining us. Today is March the 9th, second Wednesday of March. Wow, it's already going to be spring, just a couple of weeks. And we do want to thank everyone who's joining us on Facebook Live, but also those who watch us on YouTube and later on Facebook, but also those who listen to us on our audio podcast platforms like iHeartRadio, Amazon, Spotify, all the other ones, Apple, whatever you do on the treadmill. And so welcome. Today, our topic is going to be an exciting topic. The next 3 weeks, we have really great topics. We've had great topics the entire month of March, but this is great because happy Women's Month, ladies. Just want to wish y'all that. Yes, and so let's go ahead and introduce everyone. Introduce yourself in 30 seconds or less and any imaginary button or cause that you may have. We'll start with you, Jenny. Do you mind?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Jenny-Jaymes Gunn. Local LGBT advocate, work with Charlotte Pride, the National Organization for Women Charlotte Chapter, was the first transgender woman to serve on that board. Yesterday, since you'll be seeing this on Wednesday or later, would have been International Women's Day, and we had two fabulous events. I did one at a brewery. We did a round robin talk, and the other one, they actually let me introduce the call to action, which would have been very eventful, and I'm sure it's going to be a lot of fun. But we celebrate that at the International Center, International House, actually, here in Charlotte, North Carolina, where we're broadcasting from. And I will send it over to Paulina.
Wow, I get to do an introduction. Okay, I should start for this. I am Paulina Testerman. I'm here tonight from Sarasota, Florida. I am a 45-year-old mother of 2 kids and a wife to a great husband. And I got recently involved in some education activism and got lassoed in to become a co-founder of an organization called Support Our Schools. And we are certainly in our infancy, but we are rocking and rolling with the punches, certainly. And we are recognizing that there was a huge need for this sort of activism. I'm still struggling with calling myself an activist. It seems a little cliche, but I guess that's what we are doing. And so we are learning the ropes. And I'm honored to be co-founder with 3 other women, and it is an amazing opportunity to really give back to our community. And that concludes my presentation.
Your TED Talk. My name is Angela Wynn. I am a 40-year-old mother to a darling little girl, 2 dogs, and a cat. When she says lassoed, I was the cowgirl who was lassoing her in. So to speak. No, we all came together as we were all strangers, all moms, and we were going to school board meetings and witnessing just appalling behavior and outright lies that were being told to the public from community members. And we realized that the issues we had originally started going to the school board to face were much deeper, that we it ended up snowballing into issues where we're trying to save public education kind of as a whole, stop it from being privatized. It's so much, it's a tangled web. And Support Our Schools is our organization that we founded, and we're very passionate and we're very determined and very strong women, everyone. I have the honor of working with some of the strongest, most incredible women I've ever met. So thanks for having us on the show.
Well, excellent. And I'm Christian Cano, one of the other co-hosts. My buttons of, as people may know, is Medicare for All or Healthcare for All. Moms in Action, Gun Sense Legislation, and also in my heart, Black Lives Matter, in honor of Joe Oldham, who was a guest of ours who passed away in 2021. Now, let's just talk about our topic today. Our topic today is Support Our Schools, the wonderful ladies that are joining us from Florida. I titled it Support Our Schools, the Fight for True Public Schools. I kind of got that off of your website that says, take the pledge to stand up for public schools, to support true public schools and ensure quality education for all children. We're going to ask you about that, but before we do that, we usually go over 3 topics, but today Jenny and I decided we're just going to do one because later on the second show that she does on Two Queers in a Truck, she'll talk about some other current events. Since the last time we aired, the State of the Union actually occurred, and there were some hecklers. And if anybody wants to comment on those hecklers in 30 seconds or less, please have at it. Jen, you want to start off and talk about the hecklers?
I will say they made some of the most delicious memes I've ever seen in my life. Like between the 2 girls, 1 cup versus, references and the other outlandish memes that they made, the blow up doll one, and so on and so forth. I was living for it because, one, I do feel bad for blow-up dolls all over the world because blow-up dolls have way more of a use than Bobbert or MTG. They're not even worth the $10 of chemicals a piece and the water that makes their bodies up, which MTG's is probably more alcohol than it is water. But anyway, because she only gets the good stuff. But anyway, what a wacko response in the middle of a State of the Union.
Yeah.
Like in my lifetime, and I'm 52, I've loved politics almost my entire life. I've watched most of the State of the Union since about middle school on, so there's Reagan on, and I've never seen Republican or Democrat act like that. Like to me, they should have just, like in the cartoons, just put them on an ejector seat and just launch them to the roof of the Congress. Like I guess we've just given up on democracy as far as the Republicans are concerned. It's like, no big deal. The president's just talking. Let's act like fools, like drunken teenagers or something.
Yeah.
It's bizarre.
Ladies, do any of you want to comment on that, or you want to pass?
I hate to admit this. We are so busy drinking out of the water hose right now that we are so inundated with education that I have not watched TV, and I know the State of the Union was on. And pretty much the extent of what we get to hear, like, is always education driven. And so unless it's on in the background while I'm doing 16 other things at once, I don't even have the time to even listen to it. And so I feel awful to admit that, because there used to be a time in my life where I was able to follow what was going on, but right now, like, it's just a fire hose.
You mean you were busy with, like, taking care of kids and fighting for our schools and all that?
There's just a few things happening in Florida.
That's right. Well, Angela, do you want to comment on that, or you want to pass and go directly to our topic?
I'm passing the buck. We've been really focused on the different House bills here in our lovely sunshiny state.
I hear you. All I know is anyone who is running for office who is a Democrat, all you have to do on either your mailers that you mail out, or your when you drop your mail cards, whatever we call them, I forget, or you do a commercial, just do that clip of those 2 yelling like that and say, "Is this what you want?" Or
they look like they were in a ballpark. They literally look like they were in a ballpark. I mean, it was crazy.
But Jenny said there was a reference to 2 girls in 1 cup. What was that?
Well, there was a meme.
There was
2 girls in 1 tube, but they made it look like the Pornhub Two Girls in One Cup reference.
Oh, I have no idea. I have
The
no idea
expression
what
on
that
their
means.
face, they had kind of a we'll do that.
Yeah,
one.
we'll talk about that on the second show.
We talk about that on the second
Yeah,
show we do. Two Queers a Truck is a little bit more saucier, a little bit more spicier.
Yeah, we do have to.
We try to have standards on this show.
I didn't bring it up. Don't blame it on me. You brought it up.
Oh no!
I think we. Yeah, I think we can all agree that it was very interesting. Wow. Anyway, so with that said, and we won't even talk about the convoy because Jenny's going to talk about that on her next show. All right. So with that said, our topic today is support our schools. Oh, I completely forgot, Jenny. Whatever you're drinking tonight or this morning, please salute to your neighbors. I'm drinking coffee on Wednesday morning. And also, we do want to thank our Pondusa supplier and sponsor, Manolo's Bakery. This is Oconcha Manolo's Bakery on Central Avenue here in Charlotte, North Carolina. Please support your Black and brown small businesses or any small business during this global pandemic. Please remember to buy local. I was so excited that President Biden did his Buy America thing on Friday, or remember it was at 74. We only buy about 55% of our the federal government, 55% of our items that are made in America or assembled in America or something, and it's now being forced to raise to 75%. I can't believe that it was at 55%. Anyway, and I apologize, I shouldn't have this because we are not endorsing anyone yet. However, filing has ended here in North Carolina for offices, and there are some great candidates that are running for wonderful offices, and we will have a politics show in April with almost all of those candidates except probably one or two. Anyway, with that said, support our schools. Let's let one of you ladies tell us. I know you mentioned the organization that you are talking about. Anyone who is from Charlotte, North Carolina, is probably no different anywhere else. This has been, our school board has been bombarded with these. They have these T-shirts. I forgot the name of the organization. Something for
Moms for Liberty.
Yeah, Moms for Liberty. That's right. And they're just we call them on this show the "You're not the boss of me" people. You know, the "You're not the boss of me." You know, I don't want to wear a mask. Open your schools. Well, that's been happening here. So tell us what you're doing. I'm looking at your website. It's a great. I like what you're doing, but so for people who don't know about your organization, who wants to start with that?
So okay. I'll kind of get the ball rolling. Okay. I'll start with how we got to where we are. Back, I think you mentioned the mask debate, when these parents, they have their shirts out, we don't co-parent with the government. They were really upset that there were places that were mandating masks. Sarasota County was one of very few counties in Florida back in August where our school board went against the governor's orders and mandated masks. So for all intents and purposes, they say that our school board went against the law and broke the law. But the school board is designed, and they have a duty to protect their students and their teachers and our community as a whole. So they were able to mandate masks, and I started going to speak on behalf of safety for my daughter. She was too young to have the vaccination. Delta was just running like wildfire through our community. And so I stood up, I did some petitions, and I started speaking out. Paulina was speaking out as well, and we did not know one another. And we kind of came together over the masks, but then we realized that going to these meetings, like you said, they overrun the meetings. The amount of hate and vitriol that these people are yelling and screaming, and the names that they were calling the school board members, and just they were turning it into a 3-ring circus. And then we started to realize that it's not about masks with them. It's so much deeper. And politicians are kind of using these groups like Moms for Liberty, Moms for America to be their political pawns, to privatize schools, I think, is the end result. But so we start peeling back the layers like an onion, and we realize, oh my gosh, This isn't just about masks. This is something that we don't have a choice. We can't not speak up anymore. We owe it to our children. We owe it to our community that we have to speak up, or else I wouldn't be able to sleep at night if I didn't. And so that's how.
I've got a question. And Florida is home to some very large and influential companies like Disney, for example. And I saw on Twitter today how quiet Disney's been with this "Don't Say Gay" bill and some of these other things aimed at Florida public school children, and it almost seems like they're afraid to take on the governor, and that they're actually in some cases donating to Republican candidates, despite Disney having a longstanding tradition of being an open and affirming employer. It seems like a conflict that Disney's just not being the corporate citizen that they claim to be, that they, roll out the rainbows in June and go, oh yeah, we love the gays as long as they're spending money in our parks and watching our movies, and causing some controversy with, supposed, gay scene in one of the cartoons. But it seems like that they're looking the other way when it comes to actual policy in really one of their home states. I mean, quite honestly, has there been any talk on lobbying Disney and some of the other very large Floridian corporations into weighing in and saying, hey, we kind of need to stop this, stop this insanity?
Yeah, I know that about a half a year ago, I know Disney stopped contributing to Republican candidates that were objecting to Biden's win. And so, Disney tends to work real hard to straddle the line. And that was a big step they took at that point. And so, it gave me hope. It certainly gave me hope, that there was potential for them to be more of a voice here in our community. But listen, this "Don't Say Gay" bill, everyone knows about it. And if Disney hasn't stepped up to the plate yet, it's unlikely they want to get involved. And it's a divisive subject, and it shouldn't be. I mean, I don't understand why it's a divisive subject, but it is. And so a lot of organizations and companies just don't want to get in trouble. They don't want to lose customers.
It seems so counter to what the medical industry says. Like they just saw a report come out today, and JAMA, the Journal of Medical whatever, and I don't know the full name, but it's one of the big medical things written by medical professionals, and they actually monetized how much gay and LGBT conversion is amongst children and even adults, and it's somewhere in the tune of about $9 billion a year between the suicides that cause the amount of harm, and has been discredited a long time ago. Like no reasonable psychologist or doctor would ever sign off on gay conversion, but yet it really seems to me that Florida and Christian and I's home state of Texas both are working really hard between the bathroom police and the Don't Say Gay police, that they are making it a dystopian hellhole both in Florida and Texas. And what is the talk amongst the moms in y'all's groups about this Don't Say Gay? What do you think is behind it? Because there's obviously probably a bigger play. What do you think is motivating them to go this direction?
I really do think that a lot of the issues that we're facing with the Don't Say Gay and the Stop Woke Act, it really does feel like it's a bit of a smoke and mirrors kind of way to take attention off of what they are intending to do, which is privatize schools, push charter schools, push voucher schools. It's just a way to get their base riled up. I think Paulina mentioned it at the beginning. You create this fear it's psychological. You create this fear in the subconscious to these parents who were looking for anything to kind of hold on to after the pandemic. You have people on both sides that actually joined Moms for Liberty because they wanted to feel like they belonged to something. And so now you have these politicians who are utilizing that need or that want and that sense of belonging. and then saying, here, this is something to be afraid of. This is something that you should want to fix. You need to fix this. And then they're giving them a solution on how to fix that, which is just, it's such a, I mean, it's textbook, if you will, when it comes to getting people to do what you want them to do. You create anxiety, then you give it a solution. So when it comes to,
we're going to take a real quick break because we do a commercial break about this time, and we'll all pause for just a second.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching our Coffee Pan Dulce show every week. Don't forget you can watch us visually on our video podcast platforms on Facebook and YouTube, but you can also listen to us on your favorite audio podcast platforms like Apple, Amazon, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and all of the other ones that your favorite, whatever your favorite is. Once again, thank you for watching us on Coffee Pan Dulce. We'll dance out. Thank you. Welcome back. I got to be honest with you. One of the reasons I was so anxious to have y'all on was because we've been going through this for a couple of years here in Charlotte, North Carolina, Mecklenburg County. The school district here is called CMS, Charlotte Mecklenburg School System, I believe. And what I have seen is, to y'all's point, is these are very organized. They're not like grassroots. They're like very organized. Their signs are very nicely printed. They're not like, marker signs. They're very organized group of individuals. Many of them here in this area don't even have students in the schools here. And they are very upset. They're just angry at everything. I mean, if it wasn't woke or critical theory, it's something that, we have this saying here, at least I have the saying that Republicans vote because they're afraid, Democrats vote because they're inspired, and they really try to, like John mentioned, get their base riled up. What really upsets me about this, and this is why I was so excited to have you on, is you have a group of very vocal, angry individuals, at least in here, and I don't know how it is around the country, that are trying to override the professionals, the experts in education who we hire to do this, who've gone to school, gotten their PhDs and all this kind of stuff. And there are these individuals that suddenly believe they are qualified to create the curriculum for our kids. For me, it's like the dumbing down of America. And the reason this is important is because the majority of your big school districts are now majority minority school districts. And most of these individuals seem to be white moms and parents who are trying to make decisions, are trying to push decisions for young parents who happen to be of color. And that really concerns me because these are the same individuals that have been preaching homeschool. If you don't like the school, do homeschool, go to your charter school. Now what they're saying is, I want my homeschool, I want my charter school, I want my private religious school, but now I want my public school to be on demand on how I want it to be. So that's why this is, to me, important. I don't know if anybody wants to cut. That was a lot.
I think you hit the nail on the head. You said, you made a comment. You said, the professionals aren't, we don't have professionals anymore. Nobody trusts professionals. If you're a doctor, we can't trust you. If you're a teacher, we can't trust you. It's all, I am in shock that everyone is now considered an expert because they have access to a computer and they can watch YouTube and they consider themselves to be experts in their fields. And so these parents, however well-intentioned, are now wanting to discuss curriculums because they think that their little Johnny deserves to hear their version of history. And, how are these people coming to a conversation and demanding that their voice be heard? Sure, give us your input. But you're not going to define what my child learns simply because you're speaking the loudest, or you're the most aggressive, or you are threatening people. That's not how this works. We have experts in their fields. We have expert teachers. We have people who write curriculums, who help, who have PhDs in education. And I'm certainly not pushing my narrative because I don't have a PhD in education. Sure. I work in healthcare. That is where I'm most comfortable in. And so I think it's almost laughable to see these parents pound their fists and demand that their voice be heard but who are you? What do you have to contribute to this dialogue if you are not an expert in your field? And I think it's a scary time to be living in America where we no longer trust experts in their field.
Well, and I don't know what kind of trend is going on down there as far as the makeup of the people that are going to the school boards that are the antis. But at least up here, we passed a non-discrimination ordinance, both citywide and countywide, and the few people that came to the meeting to speak against it, at least in the city one, every one of them, like there was only like 3 or 4 of these hillbillies.
Yeah.
None of them lived in Charlotte. None of them lived in Mecklenburg County. They only spoke on one part of the NDO, which was the LGBT part, but it also protected veterans, pregnant people, and people with natural hair for discrimination for housing, employment, and many other things. And we even gave a religious exemption. So if you were a religious organization, such as a church or a school or something like that, you could still discriminate if you chose to choose, which is kind of weird.
Yeah.
But anyway, but the 3 or 4, like even the city council noted that after everybody spoke, it is kind of strange that the 3 or 4 people that came that screamed all kinds of anti-gay stuff and were just frothing at them. I mean, they look like rabid dogs, honestly. I mean,
they were.
Somebody needed their shots.
They were mad.
I was like, well, maybe you do need a case of the gabies. I don't know, but have you guys audited who is attending these meetings or getting an intel on who's attending? And do they actually live in your school district, or are they just? I mean, we know they're wackos, but do the wackos actually reside and have kids in the school district, or are they just showing up maybe as paid organizers or part of a national agenda?
Definitely. I mean, we do have people who have children in Sarasota County schools come there, but we also have a lot of, we call them the disruptors, who show up and just to intimidate, just to, be a threatening presence there. We've definitely have dealt with our share of.
It almost seems like, sorry to interrupt y'all, but it almost seems like, at least here, and the ones that I've seen all around the country, the news clips I've seen, because that was really going on a lot, especially when the mask mandates were in full force. Now they're being relaxed and they're still angry. I mean, they're never going to be happy. But one of the things that it seemed like to me, because those of us who have been in politics for a while, it seems like a lot of these individuals are really just prepping to run for office one day. Whether it's for school board, whether it's for local, or the Republican Party, heck, they don't have really a lot of requirements. You don't have to be involved in the community. You just have to be a loud, obnoxious person and tweet a lot. And, they think you're qualified. But it does seem like when you look at a lot of these individuals, that they are individuals that maybe have always wanted to run for office one day. And they have figured over the last year and a half since COVID, this is an opportunity for me to shine with this group of individuals and get them as my base so I can run for office one day. So that's really, to me, what it seems like. I don't know, are y'all getting that sense as well, or Jenny or anybody?
Yeah, I think we're certainly seeing that our school board level. We only have one school board member on our school board who has school-age children, and that they don't even attend a public school. They attend a private school. I can't imagine having a school board member who has school-age children who doesn't even believe in the product she's trying to sell to us. And on top of that, we're watching them use this as a platform.
Yeah.
We are a stepping stone for them and their political goals. And that is the end game, is how we can climb up slowly and keep moving up, and what can we do on the way up. And so, and then this becomes, this angry, this monster where you're watching these people, take something that's so important in our community. This public education is so important to it's supposed to be the great equalizer, and that's our goal with it. And instead they laugh at us, and they have us send our children to these public schools, but gosh, their child is precious and could not attend a public school.
And real quick too, and I always say follow the money, and even though this is not on the school topic, the current governor of Florida, DeSantis, mysteriously his largest contributor is a major investor into Regeneron, and mysteriously, last year, all of a sudden, the state of Florida opened up all these Regeneron, treatments for COVID. Yeah. I wonder if they're just basically seeding the environment to make the public schools look incompetent. Obviously, one of your local officials already is going down that road and is sending their child to a private school. But if you make it look broke, then all of a sudden, they're air quotes, they're going to have a mysterious solution. Yep. And that seems like the long play there. I know that's what it is here. I know in Texas, which started that in 1995 when newly elected Governor George W. Bush, before he became president, that was his previous gig. He had the No Child Left Behind policy, which was privatizing schools, and it also made a great pipeline to our new private prisons that we also built. It was really amazing. But do you have a feeling or an indication that maybe this has started to come up a little bit in either the State House or the school board meetings? Have there been any talk about privatizing schools?
I mean, it's definitely, there. There's no doubt about it, especially with as much as they're pushing charter schools. You can tell that it's their end game. I think, like you mentioned, they want homeschooling, but they want all the options. Yes. They want children to, that's what the politicians are using. They're using parents and having their parental rights possibly taken away or directed by the government to push this privatization of schools, because you shouldn't have to homeschool your child. We'll provide that for you, but not in the setting that we have right now. We're going to do exactly what you want in this little parental rights bubble, but it won't be a private school. You won't have to homeschool, and your kids are going to learn what parents want them to learn instead of what society needs them to learn. And that's definitely the end goal, because that's where the money is.
And I mean, what it comes down to is, I'm so sorry, what they're doing is they're underfunding education. So you're creating the perfect formula for failure. You're not going to give us enough money to educate these children properly. And then they're going to go, oh my goodness, look at your reading scores. Oh, look how terrible these schools are doing. I must come up with a new resolution to this problem. Let me solve the problem too. Well, listen, the solution's easy. Pay our teachers, provide education, better funding. I think we were 44th in the United States for funding per student.
Is that worse or better than Texas?
Texas is 43rd right now. So
my goodness.
We're one notch above them. So
right there, neck and neck.
Yeah, well, we had a show 2 shows ago, which was the dumbest state, Florida or Texas, and they were kind of branched off. But go ahead, Jen.
It was a 50-50 tie. Of course, Florida has Don't Say Gay, and they're putting basically a hit list together for parents of trans kids that they're going to send in the SWAT team and take away trans kids and all kinds of cockamamie stuff. So again, we got to take one more break, and so we can advertise our show, and we'll stop for just a second. Tune in to next week's show, because we are going to have some converts. They actually went from being anti-vax to pro-vax, which is exciting news. Hopefully they are saving lives and doing some good work, and I do believe they're from the great state of Texas. So this should be interesting. Tune in next week and see what kind of chicanery and other stuff we get into.
Bye, y'all. Excellent. Thank you so much. I'm still recording. Well, that's going to have to be edited. Hold on a second. Well, thank you so much. One of the things that I've noticed, and we've talked about this on this show, especially with public education, when I was growing up, I'm a Gen Xer, when I was growing up, and with boomers as well, was the treasure. As you mentioned, it's always been considered the great equalizer. Regardless of where you came from, if you succeed in public education, you had an opportunity to compete against this side of town to this side of town. And one of the things that we've noticed, at least I've noticed in the Latinx community, and I know a lot of people in our African-American Black community have noticed this, in a lot of the school districts where the schools are no longer looking like they did 20 years ago. In other words, they're now majority students of color. It seems to be the emphasis on public education seems to be, well, now I want a choice. Now I don't want my kids to go we need this. But yet in the rural areas, like here in North Carolina, and I know in Texas, in the rural areas, they still champion public education. We need money. We need the big football stadiums and the big sports teams and all the kids go to public schools just because they tend to look like each other. But in the school districts where they tend to have more diversity, people seem to be less concerned about the schools. And I don't know how else politely to say it, but it just seems like the darker the school district is, the less interested some of the people are in that school district to support the schools. I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, the best way to say it is
Sure.
It's another version of redlining.
Yeah.
And obviously they're trying to reboot segregation, but repackage it with air quotes school choice. We don't want to leave a kid behind. Otherwise, we don't want little Johnny or little Mary to go to school with those black and brown kids. And we don't really want to talk about it. We don't really want to teach about the pesky little wipeout of the indigenous nations or slavery, because that happened a long time ago and it's not a big deal. But I think, Christian and I both were going to public schools in Texas right when desegregation was happening. I mean, I know the junior high and high school I went to in Texas, the school district I happened to be going to when we moved back, it just lost their lawsuit with the federal government over having to desegregate. So they were scrambling to figure out solutions. And of course, the white wealthier folks were not too happy about it at all because their kids got bused multiple times, and they just didn't like going to the other part of town. Sure. And it looks like they're wanting to segregate the schools and privatize the schools because they work around Title IX and some of these other things that we privatize it using public money, that we can now send little Johnny and little Mary to making the schools great again.
Jenny, but that's the thing that I don't understand. And maybe you ladies can comment on this. What I don't understand is those of us who have spent, I spent 3 decades in the hotel business, traveling around, managing hotels and opening hotels. And in the corporate world, in my experience, we want people who have come from diverse, who look like the customers that we want to go after. We're going into an international business climate where we want our kids to have experiences so we can compete against China, compete against other countries and so forth. So why would we not want our children to have the advantages of diversity? It makes them more valuable. And so I don't understand these parents who are against a lot of these things. And we want to get back to, your organization, for example. What is their business thinking? That's not the logic of the business community. So right. I'm curious about that.
I mean, I think the answer is super, super easy. I mean, it just comes down to racism, and whether that's overt or covert, and what people understand of that is such an integral part of this formula to understand why are you so scared. And I think it's scary to consider yourself. I think white folks have been the majority for so long, and now there are moments where they may not be the majority for much longer, and I think that's really scary.
4 more years.
Yes.
We're not counting.
No, yeah, right. I think that's really scary for them, and I mean, and it's ironic because they say that there's no differences in the way people are treated, and yet I'm really scared it might happen to me. So, I mean, you can't talk out of both sides of your mouth. They have to say that it's true. People are not treated the same or equally. And at the same time, they have to anticipate that they're going to be a minority sooner or later.
What
I love the fact that I talk about them like I'm not white, but okay.
Well, I mean, there's white and there's white.
I think the majority of my understanding of oppression in general is the fact that I'm an immigrant. I think being an immigrant is a huge part of recognizing what the word privilege is, and knowing that my family didn't have language privilege, for example. We had to learn how to speak English, and English was my second language. And so I had to learn that. And I think that's an integral part of understanding it. So it doesn't just come down to black and white. It just has to do with oppression in general. If you can understand somebody else's oppression because you experience it, it makes it more palpable for you to understand it.
And to Christian's point too, and then I wanted to flex back to y'all's specific organization and talk about that just a little bit. Is in Europe, for example, school-age kids are taught multiple languages by the first grade, second grade, third grade. They typically have to learn 3 to 5 languages during their schools. By the 8th grade, they're studying calculus and advanced trig and all these things. And a lot of our kids are, have drool cups next to their face and are playing video games all day. And enough about the Republicans' kids, but anyway, it just seems like the Republicans are pushing for such a low standard, such a weird cockamamie dystopian standard.
It's the dumbing down of America.
Is that we're all going to be like Trump Jr. in idiocracy and doing rails of cocaine, at the conventions and stuff. But anyway, what would you want to tell other moms about your organization and possibly how to get involved in their local districts? And what is the most important messages that you want to come from your hearts and your organizations and really what you want to emote right now?
Well, I think one of the biggest issues, especially in the United States, is you have these families who, if you do have 2 parents in the household, you usually have to have a 2-income household to make ends meet. If you even have a nuclear family, that's what you have to do. Quite often you have a single parent home where, they're barely eking by, and a lot of the time they're on, they have government assistance. So these parents and these families, they don't have the time or the wherewithal to even educate themselves on the issues, to even want to know the issues. So I think part of what we really want to do as an organization is figure out how can we educate them? How are we able to reach them, to let them know that if you guys just learn about what the issues are, start getting involved, that this will be better. It can help everything. And so that's, I think that's one of the biggest things that we would like to do as an organization is, also show these parents and these families, hey, you might be dealing with prejudice at school because your child is a lesbian or your child is multiracial. Here's an organization where you can go to find support. A lot of parents don't even know what their rights are, much less know how to advocate for their children or their family's rights. So being able to kind of provide that landing spot. There are so many organizations out there that have cornered the market, if you will, on being able to help other their base, their population. And so we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're not trying to say, hey, we're going to tell you exactly what to do and how to do it. We just kind of want to be that umbrella, that conduit, so that we can guide people to their destination to educate themselves and advocate.
Yeah, I think we started out planning to just work in Sarasota. That was our only goal, and we were going to help our local community. And once we started the ball rolling, we have had nonstop emails and contacts. Please, how do we start a chapter in our city, in our town, in our state? What are you doing? How can we do what you're doing? Do you have resources? Can you tell us what infrastructure you're using? And so that's why we said, we're drinking out of a water hose right now. We're trying to create a strong foundation in our own community, but also help others in their communities to make sure that they have that infrastructure so they can go with it. And this is, in this situation, I keep likening it to being on the PTO or being on a boosters. You know, you have 50 kids on a soccer team, and it's always the same 4 moms who do all the work. And so I encourage all the parents, do something, contribute. If everyone does just a little bit, this is so much more palpable. This is so much easier to manage if everyone contributes. And that's something as simple as I'm going to cover your Facebook posts. I'm going to cover your Twitter feed. I'm going to, what are things are we focused on right now? I can help with whatever things that your organization needs. There are parents and people who can get involved, and also tap into retired school teachers. They are brilliant. Brilliant. What an amazing resource these teachers are. They are boots on the ground. They've been there. They know the problems with education that they've dealt with. I'm just finding out that we have an inequity with the amount of copies that different schools can make in our community. Each school can make X amount of copies. Each teacher can make X amount of copies. Inequity in photocopying. I never knew that. But if it wasn't for teachers telling us, we would have never known that.
I mean, and I think that's a lot of what the politicians have kind of glommed onto, is this whole parental involvement. We've all wanted parents to get involved and be more involved in their students' education. And I mean, that works on both sides, though. It's not saying that the parent should dictate what's going on. It's that letting the teachers teach instead of the parents, but still having that kind of involvement where they are stepping up. They are saying, hey, let me take a little bit of this off of your shoulders. I mean, teachers are reaching into their own pockets to buy supplies. That goes back to the underfunding. So
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I can see why, even though I don't agree, and Jenny and I going back and forth on this, because she says I give some people an easy pass. Like in Virginia, for an example, when the gentleman who was running for governor, Terry, what's his name, when he made that statement that they used against him about parents shouldn't be involved in, I'm paraphrasing, whatever. The teacher should be making the decisions, or whatever, parents should be making the decisions. It's kind of paraphrasing. That's not really what he meant, but that's kind of what he said. I can understand that, because we as in communities have been pushing, parents need to get involved in your children's education, especially in the Black and brown communities at these schools where maybe the PTOs or PTAs aren't really as strong as maybe some other neighborhoods. Get involved in your kids' educations. And a lot of these parents just don't know how to get involved, whether they're a first or second generation American. They don't understand the importance of getting involved. And so, but it seems like this group over the last 3 years, not y'all, but the loud, you're not the boss of me groups, they have taken that to the extreme. What they have gone beyond involved. Like in our little community in South Charlotte, our neighborhood, we do fundraisers for the school, we clean up, we do everything we can, but we don't go in there and tell the principal how to run the school. I mean, parental involvement. And so it seems like this group has taken it to an extreme. And I'm so proud of y'all and other parents who are starting to stand up and say, hey, listen, not everyone believes that, because there are a lot of really working class parents who need voices like y'all to speak on their behalf, or as we say, the voices who can only whisper. A lot of them are Black and brown voices who don't have, they don't feel empowered to do things. And so I appreciate what y'all are doing, because you're speaking on behalf of so many other parents who don't have that ability. So I don't know, was there a question in there, Jenny?
Well, you know what? It's funny that, sorry to interrupt. That's kind of why part of the reason how we started is we kept looking around wondering, okay, well, we see all of these issues happening. So who's gonna speak up for us? Who's gonna step up to the plate and do something? And we just kept looking around, and all of a sudden we realized, oops, we're the ones, we're it. And just like you said, we have to be able to amplify our voices so that they can resonate to lift up other people's voices. We want to create an echo chamber, if you will. So those soft voices are amplified.
Well, and I think as we saw in 2020, despite a global pandemic, we saw 81 million Americans say enough is enough, and we fired a budding tyrant. And when I talk about people, this is a fundamental difference. I think there's a difference between storming the Capitol and trying to cause a civil war on January 6th and going out and organizing and voting and bringing water to people standing in line in hot Atlanta for eight hours or more. I think you guys are the people helping people vote and not have a heat stroke while voting. And the hillbillies that are going to these meetings that are just
They're not all hillbillies.
beating on Harwood.
No, they are. They really are down
Okay,
here.
well,
Or they're white trash. One or the other. I mean, just
Jenny.
by a different name. Just kidding. But you know, I have zero respect for people that are in the same vein that attacked our Capitol. As a child, as a granddaughter and daughter of decorated veterans, that's how we lose our democracy.
Yeah,
is we surrender it to the loudest and dumbest of us that couldn't spell water if you spotted them the other four letters, and are just so unhinged is just the word, and you see it in their eyes. I know we went to we had several pastors do a kind of a talk-in or a sit-in during the Republican National Convention that we had the privilege of hosting in 2020, and they wanted to give the progressive pastors a voice outside of the convention hall, and we had this group of, I don't know,
Dirty
they looked
Santas.
like they were the cast-offs from the Duck Dynasty. They had like this one dude. He looked like a dirty Santa. Like he looked
yes, we call them the Dirty Santas.
but maybe bathing is optional wherever he's from. And they just were just yelling these things at these pastors. It you know, it just bizarre how they were calling them, you know, racial slurs and homophobic slurs and all that.
Yeah.
Of course, I had to go talk to them after the pastors were done talking. So I scuttled over there and was saying, well, what about love thy neighbor? What about, you know, what about all the, you know, I'm not even Christian, but I know the Bible enough to know that it's not, there's not a lot of hate speech that I remember in Sunday school.
Yeah.
But it seems like these people have been fed a lot of political red meat and are going to just scare the bejesus out of these politicians. And it's working a little bit. I mean, I that's what I'm afraid of.
Yeah, I do want to talk about, we only have about 13 minutes left. I do want to talk about that, but we do need to take a quick break to talk about the show that comes on 15 minutes after this one, that Jenny leads, and all the gloves come off on that show, Two Queers in a Truck. So we're going to take a quick pause so we can talk about that show.
Up next is Two Queers in a Truck with Jenny and Christian. And hope you guys tune in. We'll see you in about 15 to 20 minutes. Thank you.
All right, well, welcome back, and don't forget to join us in about 15 minutes after this show on Wednesday at 11:30 or 11:15, whenever this one ends. Two Queers in a Truck, join us for that one. And I do
want to say one thing real quick, and I'm not going to apologize for cutting you off. But how people, especially in Florida, in your area, how would they get involved with your organization? What are the main contacts that do you have what's the website's name? That sort of thing. We haven't really talked about that too much, so I'd kind of like
that was kind of important.
That's one of those little details we probably should have done in the start of the show.
At the beginning.
Like a lot of YouTube experts and YouTube doctors, we are not experts on anything. Right. But
we're more Joe Rogan-ish.
We're on the left side of the Joe Rogan style, right. But I promise you this: you don't even need to listen to me about vaccines, but don't listen to them either. Okay, exactly. Go to your doctor or pharmacist, please.
Okay.
Anyway, how would people get to know y'all?
Our website, supportourschools.com, and we do have, we have the Take Our Pledge button, but we also, and that gives you kind of, it's 4 main points of take the pledge to stand up for public schools, take the pledge to to fight hatred and take the pledge for equitable and equality in schools, truth in teaching. But we also have a contact us button. And if you just fill that out, it'll go right to our submission email, and we will be able to contact you and email you. And we have a media inquiry button as well. It kind of gives you also a breakdown of a little bit more about what our mission is, what our goals are, what we've done so far. And then we will be, posting there regularly and kind of keeping everybody up to date on what we're doing and how y'all can help.
Well, and two, I also encourage people in other areas and other school districts to take a look at their website and ask them questions on how they got started and have that dialogue, because if you don't defend your democracy, which a school district does have elected officials, that's what makes up your school board, which is usually at the bottom of the ballot, and it's not the sexiest part of the politics. It's usually the governors and the presidents and the senators that get all the press. But this one affects you whether you have school-age kids or not, because today's sixth grader, 20 years from now, is your senator or your mechanic or your heart surgeon, like Dr. B that comes on our show, or maybe even a trash can podcast host like me. But protect your schools, because if we don't have public access, public education is the foundation for democracy. That is why our democracy and the peaceful transfer of power existed so much. And we have to invest in the peace, because God forbid we invest into another fucking missile or a bomber or something else we don't fucking need when we don't have enough money to pay for books.
Yes.
And healthy school lunches and so many other things. That so many kids in our nation need. And I've heard stories of kids not being able to walk across the stage because they owe a school lunch debt. That's shameful. Whatever school district does that, they should take the school managers out and just like horsewhip them or something. I mean, that's ridiculous. I would be embarrassed. But we do need to invest into our schools. We also, as citizens, we are all obligated to invest into our democracy. Please educate yourself. Please go to their website. Please say the website one more time for our listeners.
Supportourschools.com. We have to be loud. The other side is really loud. They're very abrasive, but we need to raise our voices as well. But if we do it with class and integrity and poise and with logic and rationale, we're going to get the people that are in the middle, which is the majority of the population. Even though they're loud, it doesn't mean that they are the majority. So if we just keep raising our voices, keep speaking out, and just, don't be hateful and be logical and rational, we will be able to reach people, because it doesn't matter what side of the fence you're on. Education should be a nonpartisan issue. We should all agree in truth in education. We should all agree that everyone has the right to a quality public education, no matter where they're from, socioeconomic status, their gender identity. It doesn't matter. It's a basic human right. And having it be a political battleground is not. We refuse to allow that to happen. So just keep speaking up, keep speaking out. Visit our website, supportourschools.com, and please.
We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram. You can follow us. We're trying to educate. That's really a big part of our mission, is to educate the public, because so many parents don't understand what the word privatize even means. And they don't understand. They say, well, of course we've always had public education. We'll always have public education. And we have to explain to them in small digestible amounts. No, the ultimate goal is to get rid of it, because there is money made in education. And if people can make money to line their pockets, they're going to do it on the back of your child. They are going to cut programs from your child's education, and they're going to take that money and put it in their pockets. I just toured a middle school that we were considering for my son. It was a charter school before I understood what charter schools were. And I had a lovely tour, and my child at the end of the tour said, when are we going to see the library? My son is an avid reader, loves the library. And the lady was very nice. And she says, actually, we don't have a library here. We have a relationship with our local public library. And I thought to myself, we all have a relationship with our public library, sis. Like, who doesn't have a relationship with their public library? And she says, we have a partnership. And I was like, yeah, me too. It's my library card. But, you know, that's what it did, is that these schools don't build a library because they can take that money and line their pockets with it instead. And so you're cutting programs, and these students don't realize it, and these parents don't understand what they are supporting. And that is, you know, such an important part of what we want to do. We want to educate parents so that they understand the difference between a traditional public school and a charter school. I always say different is not the same. Okay. If it's different, it is not the same. And so when you say all charter schools are public schools, don't fall for it. Don't fall for it. Question things, do your homework. If you have questions, let us know. We'll answer them for you.
Or we'll find somebody who can. You know, they say keep business out of politics, keep business out of schools. There's no room for it there. That's not what we're about. We're not trying to teach kids what businesses want them to learn.
And we've looked at, you know, if you look at three other sectors, which is Defense Department expenditures, private prisons, and blanked on that there. Oh, and health insurance. If we look at the private health insurance companies and how they make money off death, how they make money, I mean, all three make money off death and misery, and so you got to cut corners somewhere for you to turn a profit. There's got to be something, you know, you got to drop some more bombs, you got to do something. And so, you know, we get into this dangerous deal that somehow business is going to make it more legitimate. And clearly we just saw a flim artist that was president for 4 years that currently resides in Florida, that his business acumen went exactly like the Trump casino did, and the Trump Stakes Company and the Trump University. I can't even say that without giggling a little bit.
Yeah. Well,
hopefully Don Jr. does not privatize schools in Florida like that.
Well, I just think that to the lady's points and yours as well, Jenny, that the more our parents and our taxpayers and just people who maybe aren't as engaged as we are those of us who watch State of the Union and obsessively, who are actually working and doing things, you know, things that aren't not maybe activism or activists or advocates, that the people that are so angry that are at these school boards, to me, they don't, from a practical standpoint, it doesn't make sense, their argument, because it can only be one of two things. They came from public schools that they're saying were terrible, and I want them changed. So if that's the case, why would we want to believe someone who came from a terrible public school is not smart enough? I mean, the logic is, why would I listen to you if your whole argument is, my education sucks so much, I want you to believe me that I'm the expert to change it? I don't understand that their argument. I know that's me looking at it from a simplistic sympathy. I don't know. I mean, we only got like 3 minutes left. Anybody, why would we, other than they're loud, I mean, I just.
Well, if the product is substandard.
Yep. Which is what they're saying, right? I mean,
is what they're saying. Their argument.
Yep.
Then why would you build another extra ancillary system?
Thank you.
That?
Exactly.
Privatize people. That if the original pattern, like if you're making dresses, for example, and the dresses come out cockeyed, wouldn't you just fix the pattern first before you make a new line of dresses?
Yes,
because
exactly.
what it you know, crap in is crap out on a manufacturing line. And if you're manufacturing schools, you would have perfected public schools first. I'm Wile E. Coyote genius, but I mean, I don't know, probably kooky. Let's spend money on the thing that we have.
Yeah, Paulina.
I think if they were here with us and you were to ask them the question, they'd say that government is wasteful and their spending is wasteful. And I get it. There's opportunities to tighten things up and make it more efficient, but let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater.
But Paulina, this is what I also don't understand. I know we're out. We only got 2 minutes left, but what Jenny and I talk about all the time, like in a state like Texas, I don't understand Florida. The Republicans have dominated that state for 20, 30 years. So if you're mad, be mad at the people that governed and did it. So if you're upset at schools, if you think our schools are doing terrible, they're the ones who were in charge. So in the business world, I'm going to be mad at the person who made those decisions. So maybe it's time to get rid of them and let's try the way it was before. So I don't understand. And so it's what frustrates me about Democrats, and I know Jenny and I have talked about this, a lot of them are going to start running differently in 2022 in the midterms. I understand why Democrats just don't talk plainly like that and say, listen, if you're mad at these schools, they're all Republicans on the school board. They're the ones that make the decision. The governor is Republican. So if you're mad at these decisions, I get it. I understand why you're mad. And so that to me, that does not make any logical sense. But
they're trapped in an echo chamber. They only hear the same news stories and the same news sources. They don't think outside the box. They're just not. It's lack of critical thinking skills. My son is a grader in high school. And when he was signing up for elective courses, I was going down the list. I was like, critical thinking skills. That's the one you need. Go for it.
Oh, but careful. They might think it's CRT. Don't say critical.
Yes. Yeah. You say the word critical, they now think it's critical race theory.
That's right.
But one of the most bizarre things, I think, too, is when they talk about these charter schools, these private schools that are paid for.
Yeah.
My next question is, well, where are the dollars coming from to pay for these school alternatives? Mm-hmm. Come to find out, it's public money that'll be diverted from the public fund to these privatized schools, these pay-for-play schools. Mm-hmm. They're going to turn somebody a profit. Mm-hmm. But they're still coming from tax dollars. They're not coming from some weirdo Mars-infused slush fund. So
those are voucher schools, actually.
Yeah, those are okay. Yeah. So all I know is we need to get back to just big old high schools with big, great football teams, and where everyone just supports the school.
Like a true Texan.
I'm fixing to fix this problem. That's right. Well. On that, listen, this has been wonderful. I understand that we're going to have a show in 2 weeks with, I think, some parents or maybe even y'all back, and we'll be talking about specifically, hopefully, we'll be talking to our Latinx community, our Latina and Latino parents around the country, and maybe what they can do. And we hope maybe we'll have both of you back and some other individuals. I understand we may have a student back as well. So, this is a very, very important topic. It's important all around the country. Here's the good news. The good news is, and Jenny's going to hate me for saying this.
Uh-oh.
All of these strategies to distract us, to rile their base, talking about woke, critical race theory, transgender, open masks, open the schools. Schools are open. You can wear a mask if you want to. It's proven that critical race theory is not really taught in schools, but we do want people to critically think. That's what schools are about. I believe that they did this so early that by the end of the summer, people are going to be focused on other things. And with this war, unfortunately, this war has distracted and taken a lot of that air out of their argument, which is why this freedom convoy, they keep getting lost around the Beltway in DC because no one's paying attention to them. So I don't know. We got to keep fighting. But do you think that, I don't know, Jenny, I mean, you're the kind of the political strategist. Do you think, they're still going to run on it, right? I mean.
Well, Chris, when you have no platform like the Republican Party, like they didn't even have a platform in 2020, which I think is fabulous. Yeah. They don't have one in 2022 for the midterms other than drunk and loud. So I truly believe that it's the Democrats' races to lose if they're consistent and persistent. Sure. Now, if we drink from the fight, like historically we do in midterms for some reason, it's going to be super ugly in 2024.
Yeah.
I do believe they've probably they're going to run out of steam, because they usually do, and because they have nothing to talk about but made up issue. We just have to keep it focused on reality. We just have to be the adults in the room and say, those are lies. They can't prove it. Show me one classroom where critical race theory was taught in a K through 12. Just show me one. Bring me a teacher. Bring us a teacher.
Yeah.
Let's have a public hearing where we saw an example of school age kids taught critical race theory. Maybe we can get a kid up there. Let's see which kids were taught this. See if they can recite this. And I bet you the answer, just like everything else, just like, gay kids turning other kids gay, never happened. Just like the razor blades and the Halloween candy was an urban myth too.
Well,
the reality is, they're full of hot air.
Yeah,
I cleaned that up a little bit.
Yeah.
But he doesn't like it when I use certain words. But I do believe when you run on non-issues, when we get into the summer and into the debate season, they're going to be in trouble. Because I think most people, we saw in 2020, 81 million people weren't having it. There's too many people were dying of COVID. You haven't done a thing for 4 years. So what gives?
Well, I don't know. I just hope that people who this is important to them, that they stay engaged and they go out to vote in 2022, because the last thing we want to do is let them have them, get their base out and so forth. But I'm still banking on the fact that they all believe that their vote doesn't count. It's a rigged election and they won't vote. So,
well, it is. It is. Us parents and homosexuals.
I'm joking. That's right.
On the computer voting machine. So all the R's turn to D's. So you might as well not vote. Just stay home. Stay home. It's perfectly safe. And we'll just run everything. It's fine.
Listen, I'm so sorry, ladies. We've gone over, and we've gone over about 5 or 6 minutes, and I thank you so much. We want to wrap this up by telling us where you're going to be in 30 seconds or less, which, we used to have a timer up here, but I took it off. So tell us where you're going to be. Let's go with Jenny first, Paulina, and then Angela in 30 seconds or less, where you're going to be in the next week or anything you want to tell us. So Jen, go first.
Well, by the time you're seeing it, I already did my 2 International Women's Day events, which would have been yesterday. Technically, while we're filming this tomorrow. And then also too, next up is 2 Queers in a Truck. We drop that show about 15 minutes after this one ends. So if you want to hear more hijinks and a little bit more edgier conversation, stay tuned and maybe get yourself a cup of coffee. You'll need it. Paulina?
As a mom, I have to schlep my 15-year-old to a paintball tournament this weekend. But as an organization, as support our schools, we have interviews coming up this week. We are building our infrastructure. We are reaching out to moms, dads, grandparents, retired teachers, anyone who champions education, and we welcome them to have a seat at the table. We would love to have a conversation and welcome everyone to speak up and speak out and help us, because the more of us get involved, the easier it is on everyone. And
yes, if you guys see me looking over to the side, it's because my daughter has been at me pretty much the whole time. So yes, being a mom, single mom, that's definitely what's happening. As Paulina mentioned, we do have some interviews coming up. We are going to be giving some presentations to different organizations around town to try and drum up some support and to educate people that wouldn't normally know or understand what the issues are in the community and in the country as a whole. We need to save schools and in turn save democracy. So vote.
Excellent.
Educate.
I will be at my local sports bar wearing this. The March Madness starts. So whatever league you watch, I'm watching the Big 12 and the ACC, and March Madness starts on Wednesday and it continues. I've got one more week. I gave up alcohol and I'm on a plant-based diet. It's been almost a month now, right, Jen? I've lost 11 pounds in 1 month. I'm so excited. But I'm still collecting my green M&Ms. Jenny has gotten us. You have to watch a show that we had. I guess who was it? Tucker Carlson.
Tucker Carlson.
Outraged about green M&Ms or something.
They were
Yeah.
saying that the green M&Ms had
I know what they
transitioned
are.
Yeah. Okay. Well.
and
all right.
had become transgender M&Ms. So they
Oh
were
my.
like boycotting green
Yeah.
M&Ms.
Yeah.
And luckily, M&M
I didn't
Mars
know that
compensated.
version.
They compensated for him, so they came out with a white M&M that's really bitter and doesn't taste that good, just like Tucker Carlson.
All right. I just want to remind you that next week is going to be a great show. We have some ladies, or some parents, or some from Texas. I believe they're from the Dallas area. They're with a group called Back to Vax. They were actually infamous anti-vaxxers. But then when the pandemic started, they actually decided they changed their view and they have now promote Vax. They have a podcast show as well.
Wow.
And so they will be with us called Back to Vax. The title is Anti-Vaxxer Parents Turning Pro-Vax. That's going to be a great show because we'll have Dr. B back. Dr. Baumfalk will be with us, who lives here in Charlotte. He'll be back with us and we'll be talking about that. So with that said, I do want to thank all of y'all for joining us. Don't forget, we do thank you so much. And ladies, if you'll just stay on just for a second, we're going to stop recording and broadcasting live, and we will try to end this on some music. It never really works, but we'll see. Ready, Jen? There we go. That's Tahama music, in case you don't know what that is. Bye, y'all. We'll see you next week.
Hey, everybody, thanks for tuning in. You're what makes our show special. We had over 250,000 views last year, and we are growing, and it's all because of y'all and your involvement with our show. And thanks for joining the family. We'll
and
see
you
you
get to see
soon.
me dance. Bye, y'all.
Yeah, that's not extra. Next up, thanks for watching our Coffee and Pan Dulce. Next up is Two Queers in a Truck. Stay tuned.